have been caught dead. I can't escape my fate. I've had it coming for years. I couldn't avoid it. It was either him or me. I have been caught dead. I can't escape my fate. Where will this end?
The Angel of Death Saga. I've had it coming for years. I couldn't avoid it. It was either him or me. I have been caught dead. I can't escape my fate. Where will this end? Blake, I've got bad news. The necromancer will die today, said his employer Fate Argent Lumiere, knowing the father would need time to get used to his son's death. How? Asked the crying father. The police will shoot him, said Fate. Have a drink, man, you need it, said Fate, handing Blake a drink he made appear out of thin air. Blake drank it down in a gulp and started coughing, choking on the drink. Not long later, a desperate father with nothing to lose stood on the scene of his son's death, crying, driven insane by the death of his son. What are you doing here, Dad? Asked Blake's son. Seeing him crying, he hugged him. What is it, Dad? Asked the son. I came to save your life. You are going to be shot by the police here and die, said the father. I'm touched, said the shocked son. Go run, boy. Now, said Blake. They are here listening to us. The necromancer disappeared into thin air. The police piled in the room. Blake knew if he tried anything he would be dead too. Mortimer, don't move or you are dead, said a policeman he recognized as his great-uncle Renard or Simon. I will give up peacefully, said Blake, who looked human and was masked. He was dressed in a black shirt and trousers. Knowing he'd be seen, he was disguised. At the police station, he was unmasked and grilled. They fingerprinted him under guard and made him do a mug shot like a common criminal. They mocked him, saying, "Why so grim, Mortimer?" He was the king of the Grim Reapers. He stayed silent, knowing they would soon know who he really was. When some fool recognized him. How is Mortimer going? Said Blake's great-uncle. He's not talking, and his mug shot is a hit in the station, said a detective at the station who was Simon's friend. That's unethical, said Simon. You haven't seen it, said the detective, showing it to his friend. Oh my God, no, it's him, said Simon, recognizing him. Simon stormed out of his office and found Mortimer sitting at a desk under guard, sipping a hot coffee. Mortimer, snapped Simon. Mortimer looked shocked and ashamed. Come with me now, said Simon. His guard tried to follow them. You stay, said Simon to the guard. He's dangerous, you may need help, the guard said. I can defend myself, said Simon. It's your neck, Sarg, said the guard. Mortimer and Simon walked into Simon's office. It's you, said Simon. He was shocked. I could deny it, said the contrite king of the dead. Blake, why are you lying about who you are? Asked Simon. You know why I am, said Blake. I didn't know you even cared about him, said Simon. I am a father, of course I care about him, said Blake. He was going to be murdered by your police. I came to save him or die for him. You are a coroner, they are your police too, boy, said Simon. Not now, said Blake. They still are, said Simon. You know as well as I do I've been caught dead. I am nothing but a dead man, and I've been protecting a killer. I am as bad as him, said Blake. I understand that. But why are you usurping the job of the emperor of our people? The dead can't rule our empire, you know that, said Simon. I was wondering when you'd ask me that, said Blake. Well, said Simon. A policeman opened the door. What do you want? Asked Simon shortly. We've identified him. You won't believe who he is, said the policeman. Blake looked awkward. He is Blue Midnight, the leader of the magicians, and Dr. Alexander, the coroner who hangs around here. Why didn't we recognize him? Said the policeman. Blake looked even more awkward and nervous. I know who he is. You haven't seen Blake without a mask or glasses before, said Simon shortly. We caught him in a mask. Why didn't we recognize him? Said the policeman. Blake was in a different mask, said Simon. Did you know about him? Asked the policeman. He lied to me too, said Simon, hurt. Why did he pose as two men, Mortimer and Blue Midnight? I thought they were just friends, not one man? Asked the policeman. That's classified information, said Simon. You don't know either, said the policeman. No, go away, I need to question my nephew. Are the others looking for his son? Said Simon. His son? Which one, he has two? Asked the policeman. The enchanter, said Simon. Oh, that one, why? Said the policeman. He's the necromancer, said Simon. Blake looked sad. He hoped his son would escape them. There was a strange noise in the other room. Simon and Blake pushed past the policeman to investigate it. Lance? Said Blake, seeing the enchanter walking up to him. Get him. That's the necromancer, shouted Simon. Hello, Dad, sorry I was late, said the enchanter. You bloody lunatic. What are you doing here? Asked Blake. I came to save you, you idiot, said Lance. He's not the necromancer. He's the enchanter. He's a friend of the police, said a detective. You idiot, he's here to save his father Mortimer, said Simon. Lance reached out to his father, grabbed his arm and teleported away with him. They're gone, Simon shouted shortly. Why did the enchanter steal Mortimer? The detective asked. And you call yourself a detective? Hissed Simon, storming into his office and slamming the door so hard the window in it smashed. Say thank you, Dad, said Lance when they appeared in the afterlife dimension. You psychopath, you don't just stroll into the police station when everyone knows you aren't their friend, hissed Blake shortly. You're welcome, Dad, said Lance, laughing. Blake frowned at Lance and then hugged him. It's good to see you are all right, said Blake. Someone is waiting for us, said Lance. Who? Asked Blake, breaking away from the hug. A portal opened beside them. They walked into it. You? Said Blake, puzzled, seeing a man standing beside his other son Tempest, the timekeeper. Yes, me, said Simon. Why are you here? Are you here to get us back? Asked Blake. No, I organized your escape, said Simon. Why? Blake asked. You are my family. You may not be my leader, but I don't betray family, said Simon. I think we are here for a reason which is more than just a family reunion, said Blake. As always, you're right, Dad, said Tempest. Why are we here? Asked Blake. We are here to undo the past, said Tempest. How? Asked Blake, worried he'd have to lose Lance. Simon is going back to warn Lance and you away from the place you were caught, and Lance was going to die so none of this happens, said Tempest. Will we trust him? Asked Blake. We can but hope. If not, we have all of time to fix it, said Tempest, chuckling. Go into that portal, Uncle Ray, said the timekeeper, pointing at a portal near them. Simon walked into the portal and was gone. It's dark tonight, I hope we aren't seen, a man said to his partner in crime. It's like the old days when we climb in a window and pray not to get caught, said the thief, who was known as the Chameleon, to his partner the cat, as they stealthily walked through the garden of their mark. The room is the third window on the second story, said the cat, examining the building. The Chameleon tested the strength of a lattice leading to it going up the wall. This should work. I'm surprised people are so careless with security, the Chameleon said, laughing. They climbed up the lattice, trying not to be pricked by the thorns of the rose that climbed up it as well. The alarm is off, or it should be, but I'll disable it, said the Chameleon. He cut the alarm wire and jimmied the window till it opened. They climbed into the room and looked about it. The safe is behind that painting, said the Chameleon, pointing at the only picture in the room. Okay, who will do the work, you or me? Asked the cat, who was as skilled a cracksman as the Chameleon. It's my turn, you did the last job, said the Chameleon, who walked over to the picture, removing it, handing it to the cat to put down. The chameleon put his ear to the safe and cracked the lock and opened the door, removing the contents out of the safe and putting it in a backpack on the cat's back. "Got it. Let's go," said the chameleon. The next day the police were swarming around the house. "Midnight, what happened here?" the police sergeant asked. "A robbery," said Blake, the coroner who helped out the police on other cases. "I know, Midnight," said Sergeant Xander Drax, frowning. "Do we have any idea how it was done and ideas who they were or why they were here?" "They were copycats," said Blake, who was otherwise known as the superhero Blue Midnight. "Copycats?" said the sergeant. "Of who?" "The cat and the chameleon," Blake said. "What, they must be old," said the sergeant. "Not old, dead," Blake said. "That's why I say, copycats." "How do you know they were copycats?" the sergeant asked. "The CCTV caught the robbery. They were young men in their 20s. One was dressed as the cat burglar, the cat. His partner was dressed as the chameleon, the jewel thief and safecracker," said Blake. "My magician's assistant Max is the original chameleon's grandson and protege. He should be on the case." "Yes," said the sergeant. "I'll call him here," said Blake, who then shouted, "Max, we need you." Out of thin air appeared a disheveled man holding a toothbrush in his PJs. "What do you want, Blake?" asked the man. "Get dressed, Max. You're a mess," Blake said to the man. "Right," said Max, who waved his arm and appeared well-groomed in a suit. Blake looked at him oddly. "What, Blake?" Max asked. "Toothbrush," Blake said. Max saw he was still holding his toothbrush. It disappeared. "Why did you call me here?" "I was brushing my teeth," Max said. "We need your help on a case," said the sergeant. "What sort of case?" "Murder?" asked Max. "No, robbery. This place was robbed by a ghost from the past." "Actually your past," said Blake. "What?" said Max. "The cat and the chameleon," said Blake. "Can't be. Granddad is dead and so is Uncle Mike," said Max. "I know," Blake said. "Someone dressed up as them to rob this place," said the sergeant. "Why would they get copycats?" asked Max. "We don't know," said Blake. "What did they take?" asked Max. "Money, jewelry, and papers," Blake said. "What papers?" asked Max. "Business papers," said the owner of the house was standing with them. "What were they?" asked Max. "Mostly IOUs. I'm a money lender," the owner said. Max looked at him and felt a sudden disgust. The owner of the house looked like a pen pusher. "Judging already," Blake said in Max's mind. "Sorry," Max said in Blake's mind. "From what I've read, he is more of a bureaucrat than you take me for," Blake said in Max's mind. "Are Granddad and Uncle Mike still in the other world?" asked Max in Blake's mind. "Yes," said Blake, also known as Mortimer, king of the Grim Reapers, in Max's mind. "You two talking in telepathy again?" asked the sergeant. "Oh, I forgot you were their Uncle Z," said Blake to the sergeant. "Did someone see them?" asked Max. Blake showed him a video on his work tablet. "What is it, Max?" asked Blake, seeing his friend's eyes widen. "I know them," said Max. "Who are they?" asked Blake. "And Maximilian Black," said Max. "What the sergeant said. "Are they related to you?" Blake asked. "Yes," Max said, "but they shouldn't be here." "What do you mean?" asked Blake. "I saw photos of Granddad and Uncle Mike in the past. That is them down to the voices," said Max. "I just figured out this case," snapped Blake, frowning. A dimension away a man was watching them in a magic pond. He gulped and said, "Oh no." He was watching them. "Tempest, have you been messing with history again?" Blake said in the pond. Tempest stepped out of a dark swirling vortex in the room with Blake and the others nervously. "Who's he? Is he your brother?" asked the house's owner, because there was a family resemblance between Tempest and Blake. "No, my meddling son, the Lord of Time, the Timekeeper, Tempest." The man behind this crime, said Blake. I see what he did, Blake, said Max, realizing what happened. What did he do? Asked the homeowner. He took the young thieves from the past to rob you, said Blake. What? That is impossible, laughed the homeowner, thinking it was a joke. Not for him, he lives in the tunnels of time, said Blake. I want to meet them, said Max, pleading. You'll meet them later, said Tempest. How? Not in the afterlife. I'll not go there, you know I'm a vampire, said Max. Spoilers, said Tempest. Why did you bring them here and turn off the alarm? Blake asked. I wanted to stop a blackmailer, said Tempest. A what? Asked the sergeant, looking at the homeowner, who was trying to look calm. Who was being blackmailed and how? Asked Blake. Mr. Harvey's debtors, said Tempest said. How? Asked Max. I cannot go there as it will ruin the lives of many people, said Tempest. Why, they were only IOUs, the sergeant said. Not all of them. He had people watched and got dirt on his clients to extort more money from them, said Tempest. Where are the papers and things taken? Asked Blake. Maxim and Michael fenced the things in the past, said Tempest. The papers I burned, there are some things nobody should know. We have no evidence, said the sergeant. You have me, said Tempest. Are you giving in to the police? Said Blake. No. I was a victim, said Tempest. You took out a loan from him? Max asked. No, he was blackmailing me, said Tempest. Why? Said the sergeant. I killed a man, Mom's killer. He found out and has been blackmailing me since he found out, said Tempest. What did he want from you? Asked Blake. For me to get dirt on people, said Tempest. To blackmail people, Blake said. Tempest nodded. I had to get back and destroy the letters I sent him, said Tempest, so I enlisted some friends from the past to take them for me. The homeowner was thinking he shouldn't have reported the theft. You are probably right, mate, said Blake aloud after reading his mind. Arrest him, said the sergeant. A policeman grabbed Tempest, who looked sorry for what he'd done and didn't fight. Not him, he's the victim, said the sergeant. Arrest Mr. Harvey. He's the criminal. The policeman released Tempest and the handcuffs on Tempest's wrists fell off. What the policeman said. He picked up the cuffs and unlocked them to put them on. Mr. Harvey. He admitted to murder and you arrest me, why? Said Mr. Harvey. I know the story. He did it to save a life, said the sergeant, who looked at Blake knowingly. Blake looked confused. I know who you are, Mortimer, said the sergeant in Blake's mind. Mortimer? Blake said aloud, looking like a stunned fish recovering. He dematerialized. Who is Mortimer? Said Mr. Harvey, hearing Blake. You'll meet him later, said Tempest. The sergeant and Max laughed. Who's he? Asked Mr. Harvey, being led away. He's scared and confused, the sergeant said. Later, when Blake confronted Sergeant Simon Alexander Drax, he knew nothing of the case or his accusing him of being Mortimer. He said that at the time he was at the dentist with a sore tooth. I saw you, said Blake. It wasn't me, said Simon. Then who was it? Said Blake. I'd ask your son, said Simon. You think it was Lance? Asked Blake. No, your other son, said Simon. Tempest? Said Blake. Yes, I think he's playing with you again, said Simon. You mean he was you from another time? Blake said. Yes, are you masquerading as a dead man? Asked Simon, wondering why Blake was accused of being Mortimer. No, of course not. Do I look like a dead man? Lied Blake. I wouldn't know, said Simon curiously. Blake left him nervously as his uncle wondered if Blake was Mortimer. Later, Blake saw Simon again. Hello, Mortimer, said Simon at Blake's office door in the morgue. Who are you? Asked Blake. You know me, I'm your great uncle Simon, said Simon. From when? Asked Blake. The future when you come out, said Simon, showing Blake his mugshot. Blake grimaced. Why are you here? Asked Blake, embarrassed. I have to admit it was a shock to find out you were Mortimer, but I couldn't see you fall, said Simon. So you came here, why? Said Blake. To prevent your capture, saving your son Lancelot's life from the police, said Simon. You came here to make me not save Lance, did you? Said Blake. Yes, said Simon. I can't do that, said Blake. We don't see eye to eye sometimes, but I can't let my son die no matter what he is. I know, I'm proud of you for it, said Simon. Then why are you trying to stop me from saving him? Asked Blake. I'm here to save him too, said Simon. How? Asked Blake. By warning him and you to avoid the place he is meant to die and you get caught saving him, said Simon. Oh? Said Blake. Lance materialized beside them. Hope it's all right, I asked your son to come over too, said Simon. It's all right, which one is he, from now or the future? Asked Blake. Now, said Simon. Why did you call me Uncle Z? Said Lance. He is here to save us in the future, said Blake. Did Temp send him? Said Lance. Yes, he did, said Simon. What is he saving us from? Asked Lance. The police killing the necromancer and Mortimer being caught saving him, said Simon. So what's it got to do with us? Asked Lance. He knows who we are? Said Blake. Who are we? Asked Lance. Mortimer and the necromancer, said Simon. This is entrapment, said Lance. I have proof, said Simon. He has, said Blake, mortified. Show me, said Lance. Simon showed him the mugshot. That's a bad mugshot, Dad, said Lance, looking at it. It could be a fake. It's not, said Simon. I love it, laughed Lance. Blake glared at his son. Ingrate, snapped Blake. Simon expected that reaction. What do we have to do? Asked Blake. Simon handed them notes. Keep these secret, even from me. I am not aware of who you are until I see the mugshot, which won't happen if you do this to the letter, said Simon. Thank you, said Blake. I'll leave you now, said Simon, seeing a wormhole in time appear. He stepped in it and was gone again. The policeman stood, aghast. Was this the man the police thought was the brutal serial killer, the necromancer? The man looked as dangerous as a kitten. How is your coffee, Mr. Tyler? Asked Lance Alexander Sr. of a patient he just brought coffee from the cafeteria downstairs at the hospital for. It is great. Do you want to be paid back for the coffee? Asked John Tyler. No. It's all part of the service, said Lance, and it was my pleasure to help. Lance wandered off to visit Dr. Blake Alexander, his father, in the morgue. What game are you playing at? You aren't as nice as you are acting, boy, said the father to his son, the necromancer. Why do I have to be playing games? Maybe I have reformed, said Lance. And I'm not a dead man walking. Blake said it skeptically. He was secretly a Grim Reaper, as was Lance. Necromancer, are you here to visit your victims? Asked Dante, the coroner's assistant, to Blake. Dante also doubled as the assistant of Mortimer, aka Blake, the king of the Grim Reapers. No, I am here to help, said Lance. I thought you were Fate's avenging angel. Why are you hanging around in a hospital where people are saved? Asked Dante. Haven't you noticed my police nanny? Fate hasn't sent me here. I came here of my own accord, said Lance. Yes, said Dante. Not happy Lance was suspected of being the necromancer. Any suspicions laid on Lance's shoulders would lead to suspicion of Blake and himself as not being all they seemed to be. Being caught would cause chaos for everyone they knew. Dr. Death, said Blake's least favorite co-worker at the hospital. What do you want, Jack? Moaned Blake, whom the orderly, Jack Taylor, called Dr. Death because he was a doctor of the dead, a coroner. Mortimer, the father of the necromancer? Muttered the man who came in with Jack thoughtlessly. Blake, aka Mortimer, glared at Jack, who was oblivious to what he had done. "This man wants to talk to you," said Jack offhandedly. "What do you want to talk to me about?" asked Blake. The man was Lance's police nanny. "Hi," said Lance, who went for a coffee in Blake's office when he saw Jack coming with the policeman. He came back to see the policeman looking nervously at his father. Lance heard everything. "Hi, Charlie. I've got you a coffee. It must be thirsty work watching little old me," Lance said brazenly, handing the coffee to the policeman. "Thank you," said the policeman, now more than just nervous, he was confused as well. He was unsure whether to drink the coffee or not because it was handed to him by a man he suspected to be a killer. Lance rolled his blue eyes in his handsome head. He took back the coffee and sipped it. "I didn't poison it," Lance said and laughed, "or did I?" "Lancelot, be serious," snapped Blake. Lance's memory had replayed this, much of his day as a dream. When he fell into a deeper sleep. Lance Sr. lay in a terrifying state of sleep. He dreamed he was walking around the hospital unseen. He felt the greatest terror in his life. He was walking to a room in the hospital when he recognized the room of the man he was ordered to kill by fate, his master. He awoke in a cold sweat in a strange state of extreme terror. The next day, he visited his mark with his regularly scheduled coffee, only to find an empty bed. He asked his doctor if they had transferred him somewhere else, puzzled. "Oh, don't you know? Mr. Tyler died in his sleep last night," said the doctor sadly. This disturbed Lance greatly. Something seemed terribly wrong. How could he have dreamed of himself visiting the man one night and the next day finding him dead? He wondered if he was having a vision of death like his son, a doomsayer, had many times before. He visited his father and told him about his dream. He was puzzled, too. He said it was an odd death, as he could attest as the judge of the dead, the cause of death on the official afterlife obituary he'd seen read killed by death, and the Grim Reaper who brought him in was the Angel of Death. Blake and Lance thought it was scary and odd. The Angel of Death was a myth. They thought they had a rogue Reaper killing people. Lance could only agree to hunt it down and stop it before it struck again. Lance had another dream of a similar type, and yes, the person in it died again. He could not find nor see the angel or anything in his dreams, which continued to come. They had a haunting feel to them and kept returning to his memory. They became more and more real to him. He confided in his friend Sandy, the Sandman, his son's dream guru. "I think you were astral traveling," said Sandy. It horrified Lance to find out he was killing people in his sleep. Lance was so scared that he didn't want to sleep. He stayed awake for 3.5 days before he felt himself drop off to sleep. He visited his father the next day. To find more people dead at the hands of death. Lance was scared and afraid to tell his father what he knew. All he knew was that he had to confess. It took all his courage. "Dad," Lance said. "What?" asked Blake, sitting in his office in the afterlife, puzzling over the death records relating to the Angel of Death. "I know who the angel is," Lance said nervously. "Spit it out," snapped Blake impatiently. Lance could barely speak, he was so terrified. He tried a few times, but nothing came out. "Well, are you going to tell me or not?" Blake snapped, not understanding why his son couldn't speak. He was terrified, and his mouth wasn't working right. "Me," was all he could eventually say. "What are you doing, necromancer?" demanded his father, more than annoyed. "I don't know," Lance said. "What do you mean you don't know?" snapped Blake. "I wasn't doing anything consciously," Lance blurted out. "You mean you were murdering people unconsciously? Do you think I'm mad?" Blake lost it completely. "Yes," Lance said timidly. "What do you expect from me?" "You've been lying to me," Blake screamed. "I didn't know I was," said Lance. "How could you not know what you were doing?" shouted Blake accusingly. "I was asleep," said Lance, afraid of what Blake was going to do to him. "Asleep? Sleepwalking?" Asked Blake, calming down. No, astral traveling was what Sandy thought, said Lance. I thought it was horrible nightmares or visions. Oh, I thought you were messed up, boy. You can't even sleep without killing people. Hissed Blake, disgusted. I tried not to sleep. I made it for over 3 days, and my wife slipped me a sleeping tablet in my food, Lance said irritably. You shouldn't stop sleeping. The lack of sleep can kill you, boy, said Blake shortly. Yeah, and me sleeping kills others, said Lance. We'll keep an eye on this angel, but we'll have to live with him for now, said Blake, and for God's sake. You keep sleeping, or I'll sick Dante on you. Okay, Lance said awkwardly, not relishing the thought of Dante lecturing him. This was the beginning of the nightmare that was the angel of death. In his office in the afterlife, Mortimer, the king of the Grim Reapers, sat in his human form, reading and signing papers. He was listening to the song The Scientist from Coldplay's album A Rush of Blood to the Head on repeat, his idea of chilling out at work, but it was interrupted by his son, the necromancer. How is the Lord of the Dead? Asked the son. I am not the Lord of anything, Lance grumbled. Mortimer. Why do you have to have that noise on? Said Lance, who, unlike Mortimer, was not a fan of the music. Philistine. Go away, I'm busy, hissed Mortimer, turning off the music playing on his phone. Lance looked piqued. Take off the mask. Tell me how you really feel, said Mortimer. What do you want? Lance tore off the mask he was wearing as a disguise. He wasn't happy. What is it with you and paperwork? Asked Lance. I hate it, snapped Blake, you psychopath. I'm not a psychopath, I hate killing. You are if you think I like it, said Lance, who was the assassin of fate, but the police called him a serial killer. You do a good job of acting like one, moaned Mortimer. And you act like a pen pusher, said Lance. It's not me. It's Dante, he's a slave driver, moaned Mortimer. In walked Dante, Mortimer's assistant. Mortimer, go back to work, your work is important. Go away, necromancer, haven't you got somebody to kill? Ordered Dante. Lance looked at Mortimer, who looked at him pitifully. Lance stormed off. These were the last words the father and son spoke in this life. The son was soon after murdered by another assassin out of vengeance for a gangland godfather, Lance, who had killed for fate. Lance did not die alone, his killer was found dead with him in the early hours of the morning. By a jogger on an early morning run. Sarg, they found the necromancer, said a policeman to the man in charge of the local police station when he was first found. Where is he? Asked the sergeant. They took him to the morgue, said the policeman. Morgue? Said the puzzled sergeant. He's dead, said the policeman. Oh? Who killed him? Asked the sergeant. John Steele, he was a hitman, we think it was a gangland hit. Because the necromancer killed his boss, said the policeman. How do we know the killer? Said the sergeant. We found him dead near the necromancer, said the policeman. Do we know who the necromancer was? Asked the sergeant. Yes, it was strange, I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen his face myself, said the policeman. Well, who was he? Asked the sergeant. Lance Alexander Sr., the magician, called the enchanter, said the policeman. Sarg, why are you crying? Lance was my great-grandnephew, said Sergeant Renard Alexander. The sergeant disappeared into thin air, reappearing in the morgue, where he found the coroner crying over the body of a dead man on the slab. I thought you'd be upset, said Renard, still crying. How did you know? Asked Blake, the coroner. We sent him to you, I hear, Mortimer, said Renard, hugging his grandnephew, who shuddered. You know who I am? Said Mortimer, the Reaper King. The necromancer was your son, as was Lance, said the crying Renard. What are you going to do with me? Asked Blake. You're a dead man, so you can't be the leader of our people, said Renard. Yes, said Blake. You need friends, not enemies, now, said Renard. Thank you, Uncle Ray, Blake said. Blake, can I have a word with you? Said Dante, walking into the room. What you want to say to me, you can say it in front of my Uncle Ray, Blake said. The angel of death is free, he killed the killer of the necromancer, said Dante, looking oddly at Renard. Angel of death? What is that? He sounds bad? Said Renard. I was afraid that might happen. Where is he? Asked Blake. He's here, he followed Lance's body here, said Dante. What? Asked Blake, worried. Who is he? Asked Renard. A dead Reaper's soul, said Dante. You don't have souls, said Renard. Only one will ever have one, said Blake. He is the darkest of the Reapers, a loner who knows nothing but death, said Dante. He was a horrifying killer in life, but in death, he's worse, he has no mercy or conscience to stop him, he is said to be the god of death, the ruler of death and the dead, he is higher in rank than even Mortimer. Was he Lance's soul? Asked Renard. Yes, the grieving father said, unsure what to do. What does he want? Asked Renard. Lance, I suppose, said Blake. What for? Asked Renard. I don't know, said Blake. Can he be stopped? Asked Renard. No, Blake said. We should take his body somewhere else, he wouldn't want anything good to happen to Lance, said Renard. We can't escape him, wherever we go, he can go, said Blake, frustrated. He can't travel in time, I think. Enter the portal? Said a voice coming out of the swirling portal that had just appeared near them. Blake picked up his son and walked into the wormhole in time. Dante and Renard followed him. The moment they were gone, the angel of death arrived. He saw the portal disappear. The brother, hissed the angel bitterly. He's trying to break into here, said Tempest, the voice of the portal's owner, a dimension away. Why does he want Lance? Asked Blake. Who knows? Said Tempest. I thought you'd know, said Blake. I don't, said Tempest, all I know is Lance was meant to die before the angel awoke. Oh, so the angel was meant to die with Lance? Blake said. Yes, said Tempest, I'd rather live with Lance than without him, so I won't take you to kill him, but save him. He may be a pain in the neck, Blake said, crying, but he's my pain in the neck. I love him and miss him. Will the angel get in here? Asked Renard, remembering their bigger problem. Yes, it's all a matter of time, he has my powers, just like Lance's son who got his visions from the angel, said Tempest the timekeeper, the master of time. Lance's son saw only visions of doom. Where should we go? Asked Blake. The only way to stop the angel is to reunite his soul with his body, Tempest said. How do we do that? Asked Blake. Go to the past and save his life, Tempest said. Okay, said Blake. Take that door, I'm fighting back the angel, from coming here, I can't join you, said Tempest, pointing at a portal among a billion in the halls of time. They took it and took Lance. They appeared on the street, where Lance would die moments later. I have you, necromancer, said Lance's killer. Lance stood disarmed with his killer's gun to his head. Don't kill me, please. I beg you. It's what the angel of death wants, said Lance. Police, let him go, steal. Shouted Renard, pulling a gun on the killer. The killer panicked. He is the necromancer, said the killer, thinking he deserved to kill him. I don't care, he could be Jack the Ripper, for all I care, he doesn't deserve to be murdered, him dead is worse than him alive, Renard shouted. He murdered my boss, said the killer. Lance was looking terrified, not sure who was worse, the police or death. The killer then noticed Blake was holding a dead man. You bring your own bodies with you, do you, copper? Said the killer. Lance recognized himself, he realized where they came from. Please don't kill me, pleaded Lance. The killer cocked the gun and was about to shoot Lance. The killer paused to take a breath. "You are dead," said the angel in a voice colder than dry ice. He then ripped off the head of the killer. The angel knocked Lance violently out of the way of the gun, to the surprise and horror of Lance and the others. Lance crawled over to the time travelers. They looked at the angel nervously. The angel looked at them, his lips curled into a smile. The others looked worried. The angel burst into laughter. "Honestly, you should see yourselves," the angel said. "You look like you are looking at the Antichrist, seriously." "You are," said Blake. "I'm not that bad, Dad," said the angel, melting into Lance's form. "That won't fool us. You can't have my son, either one of them," Blake said defensively. "You tore the man's head off." "I was defending myself," said the angel. "I knew you'd come here." "Why did you want to come here?" asked Dante. "Look," said the angel, pointing at the dead Lance. He was no longer injured, he groaned. "He's alive," said Blake joyously. Blake looked at the angel, who was melting away into non-existence as the past had changed. "Is he gone?" asked Lance from the past. "No, I feel him inside me," said the Lance in Blake's arms. "Wonder if Tempest is all right?" said Blake. "Can you put me down, Dad?" Lance felt uncomfortable being carried around. "Not until we get home," said Blake, who didn't want to lose him again. A wormhole appeared out of thin air. "Temp's all right," said Lance, who was thinking Blake was getting too clingy for him. The time travelers entered the portal, and they were gone. Lance thought Blake was acting strange, even for him. He must have wanted to keep Lance close to him, so he could do some paperwork when they got back home. Lance realized that if he died, that monster would be born of him, and he'd have to be more careful with his life from now on. It's human nature to fear death, and that went doubly for Lancelot Alexander, the necromancer, a grim reaper with the soul of an uncontrollable violent killer. In the past, he feared death less, but now he feared what would be released into the world when he died. His soul was a horrible killer worse than him. Lance awoke from a very bad dream, screaming. "Lance, are you all right?" asked his wife, spooked by her husband's screaming. "I saw the angel kill again," said the sweating, scared man, whom the police called a serial killer. "Oh no," said his wife, not sure what to say. All she could do was hug her husband to comfort and calm him. "This astral traveling as I sleep is really disturbing," said Lance. His wife kissed him to calm him. "You can't control him, he comes out of you when you sleep," said his wife. "I wish I could skip sleeping," said Lance. "You know you can't, it will kill you not sleeping," said his wife, scared he'd try not to sleep again to stop his soul, the angel of death, from escaping his body when he was unconscious and killing with Lance's face again. What scared Lance most was that he saw the victim was not alone. He saw a man looking at him, shooting at the angel as he awoke. The next day, Lance was worried and expected to be arrested or shot every second of the day. His boss arrived unexpectedly when he was working at the newspaper where he worked as a reporter. "Hello," said Lance's boss, Argent Lumiere, the last Fate whom Lance killed as Fate's assassin, the necromancer. "For God's sake, go away, Argent," snapped the terrified Lance. "Don't be like that," said Argent shortly. "I can't be seen with you," said Lance, looking nervous. A man walked up to them, seeing Lance's nerves. "Lance, you look nervous." "This is a first," said the man. "Are you planning on doing an article on it?" retorted Lance. "No, nobody would believe it," said Lance's colleague, joking. "I don't know, maybe an interesting thing to put on the Blake report. You talk about the necromancer so much, it would be something different," said Lance, joking. Lance's father, Blake, laughed. "What's wrong?" asked Blake, who then noticed Argent and looked angry. "Leave him alone," snapped Blake defensively at Argent. "He is my assistant," snapped Argent. "Is that what you call them?" said Blake, who knew Lance was the necromancer. "You work for me too, Blake. Stop telling me what to do," snapped Fate. Blake did work for Fate, too, as the secret king of the Grim Reapers. Blake glared at Fate and stormed off. Another man noticed this and walked up to them. "Alexander," snapped this man. "Lando?" said Lance nervously, not sure what he wanted. "Argent, stop harassing my employees," snapped Orlando King, the owner and editor of the paper. "Why is everyone defending this guy? You don't even like your father-in-law," snapped Fate. "You are making a scene," snapped Lando. "Do I have to call security?" Argent left. "Thanks for that, Lando," said Lance, wondering why Lando was being nice to him. "Come with me," said Lando. Lance followed Lando to his office. There was a man in there, and he looked at Lance curiously. "Do I know you?" asked the man, seeing Lance, not able to put a face to Lance. Lance knew where he saw him in his dream, and he was the witness of the angel's killing. "No, I've never met you," said Lance, lying. "I could have sworn I saw you recently," said the witness. Lando noticed Lance was lying, but he didn't ask him about it. He knew about the necromancer and the angel of death, and he thought it was because of them that he lied. "This is Jerry Marlowe, he's a rookie reporter," said Lando. "He needs a pro to help do a story on a murder by a killer who we suspect was a magician." Lance knew what case it was, the angel killing Marlowe's friend. He knew he read Marlowe's mind. Marlowe was thinking of killing the killer. He would recognize him sometime and try to kill him as soon as he remembered where he saw Lance's face. Lance dreaded being killed and felt he did not want to kill Marlowe either. He knew one of them would end up dead if Lance helped with the case. He didn't know who would end up dead. Lance knew if he died, the angel of death would be freed and released on the world, killing people without a conscience. Lance was scared. "Lando, I can't, I am busy doing the necromancer case," said Lance, trying to get out of it. "He can and will kill people without you watching. We have a rogue killer magician," said Lando. "I can't," said Lance. "Why can't you help me?" said Marlowe. "Enchanter, you should want to catch a rogue magician," snapped Lando, using Lance's magician name. "Enchanter? Are you a magician?" asked Marlowe. "Yes," Lance admitted. "You are on the story, it's final." Lando shouted, "Go do your work, now." Lance and Marlowe went to solve the case reluctantly. Later that day in the afterlife, Lance wandered into his father, the king of the Grim Reaper's office. "Hi, Dad," said Lance timidly, not wanting to ask for help but not sure how his father would take it. "Are you all right?" asked his father, noticing Lance wasn't acting his usual mocking devil-may-care self. "Actually, no, the last night the angel killed a man when I was sleeping," said Lance timidly. "Your soul, the angel, will astral travel again," Blake said. "Yes," Lance said. "What's wrong? Did you get filmed?" asked Blake. "Something like that," Lance said. "Oh no, what happened?" asked Blake. "I saw a witness shoot at the angel before I woke up," said Lance. "Oh no," Blake said. "And he came to Lando with the case," said Lance. "Oh God, no," cried Blake. "And Lando put me on the case with the witness," said Lance. "Does he recognize you?" asked Blake, worried. "Yes, but he's not sure from where," said Lance. "It's all a matter of time till he remembers. Doppelgangers are a pain." "Yes," agreed Blake. "I'm not sure what to do when he remembers my face," said Lance. "You could kill him, you are a killer," said Blake. "No, Lando would ask questions, he draws the line at me killing my co-workers," said Lance. "So do I." "Oh, okay," Blake said. "I'm more of a dead man walking than you are," said Lance, walking to the closet where Blake kept his body when he was in Reaper form. He opened the door. "Anyone home?" Lance asked and saw his father's dead body. "Yes," said the Reaper form of Blake, "I'm out here, he's dead for the moment." "Something I've always wondered about him is, how doesn't he decay?" asked Lance. "He's under an enchantment to stay fresh," Blake said. "You know, I don't mind being a villain in your mind, to me, you're a clown," said Lance as his dad did paperwork. "Buzz off, fly. You bother me," Blake hissed at his son. "Aw. You're no fun," Lance said and left him to kill someone as fate's angel of vengeance. "Find anything?" Lance asked, appearing out of thin air near Marlowe, who was scared to death. "You!" snarled Marlowe, recognizing Lance as the killer. "Yes, me. What's wrong with you?" Lance asked innocently, trying to play the innocent card, as he'd never believed the truth. "You are the man I saw. Stop playing innocent," said Marlowe. "No," said Lance, pulling out his magical sword of enchantment from the sword belt he wore standing his guard. "I'm a victim too. But I can't die, he'll be freed." "How could you be a victim?" "I saw you killing my mate," said Marlowe. "I was asleep when your friend died, it shocked me too," Lance said. "How if you were asleep?" "You lie," asked Marlowe. "It wasn't me, it was the angel of death." "My twin, my soul," said Lance, who was about to slay Marlowe reluctantly. "Put down the sword, you psychopath," hissed a voice nearby. Lance turned to the owner of the voice. "No one has to die," snapped Blake. "Dr. Alexander," said the witness, recognizing Blake from work at the paper. "Dad, I have to kill him," said the terrified man, wanted as a serial killer by the police. "Do I have to pull ranks?" snapped Blake, the king of the Grim Reapers. "The angel inside me outranks you," said Lance, who was a Reaper too. "He's insane," said the witness. "He is?" Blake said, then said in a funny voice, "Lancelot, put down the sword and don't move." Lance did what he was told. "Stop doing your Jedi mind tricks on me, Dad," snapped Lance accusingly. "Are you a Jedi Knight?" asked Marlowe. "No, we are enchanters," said Blake. Lance looked livid, and he couldn't move. "I will fix this without violence," said Blake. "Call the police, he's a killer," shouted Marlowe. "I know," said Blake. "What are you doing, Dad?" asked Lance, thinking he was being betrayed. "Come here, Marlowe, I need a private word with you," said Blake. Marlowe walked over to Blake, who whispered something in Marlowe's ear. Marlowe disappeared into thin air. "What did you do to him, Dad?" "He knows the truth." "He thinks I'm a killer?" Lance asked furiously. "You are a killer, you psycho." "I changed his memory and sent him away, his truth has changed," Blake said. "Not all truths are actually true, sometimes the stories we tell ourselves in our dreams are hidden truths that live beyond the time when the facts are long dead and forgotten. Anyone can quote Shakespeare, but the man himself and his life lie lost in the shadows of the past, as is your secret."
I've had it coming for years, I couldn't avoid it. It was either him or me. I have been caught dead, I can't escape my fate. I've had it coming for years, I couldn't avoid it. It was either him or me. I have